So what do you say to someone like Jerry Bowler, my sweet, sweet father, who would hate being called sweet, so I'm just going to bring it up more often. But he believes that air conditioning was created possibly by God as a reason to stay inside and therefore away from the kinds of realizations that you're having.
Or the inconveniences, for sure. My father used to tell me, God gave us Walmart. I think rural people like stuff like that, because it is, it responds to a kind of deprivation or a kind of inconvenience or discomfort. We didn't have air conditioning in our house in Lower Alabama, and my grandparent, when we moved to Birmingham, we had air conditioning, but my grandparents never had it. And when you live in a house without air conditioning, you keep the doors and the windows open.
Yeah.
So you can hear the birds singing. You can taste the dust in the wind. You can smell the storm brewing. And I love that. But I would never want to live without air conditioning in this world. And,
Yeah.
I mean, there's an irony to that, too, because it's partly because of air conditioning that we're in such a mess with climate change. It's all those other human conveniences that we've made for ourselves to go faster or go farther or stay inside.
Yeah.
You wouldn't, none of this would be in here. Nashville wouldn't, as we know it today, would not exist without air conditioning. Nothing in the South would.
I once read a whole history of Florida through air conditioning. I don't really mean for this to become a podcast about air conditioning, but now that you're talking about it, it's actually really interesting.
It's amazing how something like that, when you think about
No, it is. It just seems like one of the most obvious barriers to the kind of embeddedness that you're describing is, well, what if we paid more attention? And what would we need to pay more attention? Well, we'd probably need to open a door or a window. Well, what makes me not want to do that? My air temperature or my desire to keep everything uniform so I can be more productive. And that's the truth of it.
I mean, I do think that we have this idea now that nature is something we drive to visit. That we get in a car and we go to the woods. We get in a car and we go to the fields or the river. And, I think my kids had this series of picture books, and they were based in, they were picture books, but the stories came from Walden by Henry David Thoreau. And so when one of the storybooks is called Henry Hikes to Fitchburg. And Henry and his friend, whose name, my children are all grown up, so you can excuse me for not remembering these details of this picture books, but the friend takes a train, I believe, and Henry walks. And it's a whole description of the things Henry sees while he's walking. And he actually gets to Fitchburg first because of all the delays in the more modern form of travel that his friend takes.
Yeah.
We don't do that. We don't hike to Fitchburg anymore.
There's this lovely book by Catherine May about enchantment that I really enjoyed. And she, like you're describing, didn't sort of go somewhere else to find nature. It was the pandemic, right? Just noodled around, looked outside, went on walks where she wasn't sure where she was going. And there was the feeling that it was the quality of attention that she was learning to pay because we were all stuck, dramatically changed how, how beautiful she thought the world was, but also just how embedded in it than she felt. Like she felt more connected to everything. What do you think it is about how it changes us when we start to maybe it comes out of hobbies, but we start to get more into the world as it is in our house and yard?
Well, I think artists talk about flow, about being so immersed in a project or an activity that you lose first your sense of the passage of time,
Yeah.
but then your sense of yourself as separate.
Yeah.
And I think that is, that's, it was so interesting to me about during the pandemic, because I don't know if you knew this, but there was actually a shortage of birdseed during the pandemic.
Really?
Because so many people took up bird watching during, they would hang a bird feeder and fill it with seeds, and they would be fascinated and fall in love. And I think partly it was that we were spending so much, those of us who had the luxury of working from home, were spending so much time in front of screens to do our work, that the idea of sitting down in front of a screen when the work was over was kind of revolting. So the idea of going for a walk, since we couldn't go to the movies or couldn't go to a restaurant, it woke people up in a way, not just Catherine May, but all of us, so much so that it was hard to find birdseed. And I thought that was wonderful. The other thing that happened during the pandemic, besides the fact that we were paying attention in a way that many of us had not ever had the chance or took the time to do, was that the animals around us noticed our absence and took advantage of it. So there are all these pictures that were showing up on social media of, a fox walking right down the middle of somebody's street, or, I think there were several cases of cougars, on major thoroughfares and cities in California. And it was a good reminder that they are always watching us.
Yeah.
They are paying attention to our patterns. They're looking for opportunities to coexist in a way that we have not been looking for them.
That reminds me, I got really obsessed with this. So I moved home to Manitoba during the pandemic, and then like the winters are like legit in Winnipeg. They are full 6-7 month experiences of
your own. I'm not going to be a climate migrant to Winnipeg. Thank you for the warning.
It's a confrontation with mortality that you just have to accept. But I got so obsessed with this one skunk that was having the time of his life
in the snow,
because nobody was, there just wasn't that much traffic outside anymore. And the sight of that skunk outside under this beautiful street lamp, and the way that it looks, like they're so showy, they're so beautiful, and the way that they look like they just like put on their grandma's coat, and they just kind of fluff along in the night,
and they talk. They have this, they're constantly talking to themselves, just little quarrelsome little it's so cute.
I do really like your obsessions. Like, if I poke you with a stick, you'll be like, what's really cool? Possums. I love possums. You love possums. You have their, like, I wonder if you, oh gosh, you wrote this little, it was like an ode. It sounds like a blessing. It was like, ode for the pink fingers of the possum, do you remember that?
The praise song? Yeah, it was for the unloved animals.
Yes.
I love the possums.
Which other ones do you love?
Well, I try, Kate. It's an act of attention and an act of will, but I try to love them all. I do.
Yeah.
The red wasp, I'm trying. I'm trying. They're eating my caterpillars, but of course they're not my caterpillars. Yeah. The red wasp has babies to feed too, and so there was mosquitoes in that one, and little snub-nosed bats. You can love a mosquito, Kate, if you know that the mosquitoes are out there feeding the swallows.
The things they rob from me, they give to others.
Yeah.